Mike Zender, Chad Lubke here with Seasafe Homes. And just as we continue to talk to clients and learn more about modular homes, we are starting to discuss things about insurance, discussing the benefits of not just modular homes, but elevating a home and how insurance plays into this. So, Chad, when the question is asked, are modular homes insurable? Tell me about the Seasafe Homes and what is there to know when it comes to getting insurance, cost of insurance. Let me start with that.
Sure. Yeah, so what we've chosen to do with all of our homes is go to the Miami Dade code, which is the 180 mile an hour and design pressure D designation. So that brings us above what the minimum the Florida building code is. Typically in our area in Pinellas County, that's 100 to 145 miles an hour. What that allows for is us to exceed all these code standards. And basically the way we're able to do that is through a lot of strapping. And when we talk about hurricane type events, there's two things at play. There's the obvious one, which is flooding, which is what we had here with Helene that did the significant damage. But number two is something we haven't experienced here, and that's the wind piece. So when we think about why the 180 mile an hour design pressure D, we look at case studies like Irma and then the hurricane that hit Mexico Beach, where the devastation was really from the wind, not just the water.
Right.
So that's the big driver on that. So by doing that, we're able to get to the highest standard that they have testing for.
Okay. So I think I understand it now, but what does design pressure D mean? Like, give me an example, just simplify it. What does that mean? I understand the 180 mile an hour wind rating Miami Dade, but the design pressure D, I think, is worth explaining.
Yeah. So to kind of paint a picture, if you think about the Florida Keys, you have the Gulf of Mexico on one side and the Atlantic Ocean on the other. So you're at maximum exposure. There's no buildings around. There's no other terrain. So that's the maximum design pressure that they designate in Florida. So that's what we're designing to. There aren't really areas around here that have that, but by doing all of our exterior facade as well as the uplift pressures to that rating, we're able to exceed in case there ever was something that hit us.
Yeah, I know that there's some really cool case studies out there or examples of modular homes that have been in those situations, those extreme storm scenarios where you see, I think there was one down in Sanibel Island when that was hit. I think maybe it was Ian or Charlie or one of the big storms that they were hit with down there. And you see that debris, is all over the place. Trees were snapped, and still this modular elevated home was there. Specifically, it was an affinity modular home in this type of scenario, kind of built to these type of specifications with 180 miles per hour in design pressure D. That said, can a client expect to see any differences in what the insurance premiums would be? For example, we're talking about wind and high wind speeds. Is there anything maybe reduced cost associated with that?
Yeah, so typically from buildings built after 2021, there's a new building code. And what we see on average is between a 15 and a 25% decrease. Really, that's even from a home that was built in 2020 to 2021. So if you think about some of these homes that were built in the 60s and 70s, it could exceed that. That's sort of an average. And that's really with the windstorm premiums. So that's part one to the puzzle. Again, by us going way above and beyond that and working with these underwriters from the insurance companies, we're able to make sure all the discount boxes are checked on these insurance forms, ensuring that these are underwritten to the highest possible standard.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, when you're looking at it, when I'm thinking of insurances, you've got your wind, and another big one is the flood. Mm-hmm. Certainly that is something that I try to look to controlling as much as I can and minimizing as much as I can. When it comes to that yearly premium, I mean, those all are going up. We're getting hit with it, here being in Florida. What is it looking like on the flood side? After, we've got the wind, but what about the flood insurance as well? Is there any information you've seen?
Yeah, sure. So basically kind of the way it breaks down is there's a designation called base flood elevation, and that's put out by the federal government, by FEMA. The state of Florida has 1 foot of freeboard, so the Florida Building Code adds 1 foot on top of that. And then it's up to every municipality to say if they want an addition to that. So for instance, in Madeira Beach, there's an additional 4 feet. So what we see is typically it's a 30 to 60% decrease up to a point every foot that you exceed the FEMA minimum.
Gotcha.
So now, again, it isn't like you're going to have no flood insurance, but it's going to be significantly less. The other part that we look at is all of the homes that we're designing are masonry and concrete on the ground level. There's no lumber. So that really decreases a big portion of it. That's something that the underwriters look at. And if you really wanted to get it down to bare bones, you could simply have columns. So there's sort of a happy medium there with people that want to have a ground level entry or an enclosed garage to get around a lot of the premiums increases in that. We put flood vents in. So for each square foot of enclosed space, we have 1 engineered square inch of flood vent. And what that does is it allows the hydrostatic pressure to not be built up on the exterior of the home. It lets it essentially flood freely, so the walls aren't in risk of collapse under the tremendous lateral pressures that would happen during a flood.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. I mean, when you're thinking about all those, that tide rising or those waters rising, the ability to kind of go through there. So you're describing basically the different ways. One, you can do that first floor masonry. And again, underneath that first floor, that could be deep pilings, that could be, really whatever the soil report says it needs to be, but that first floor is going to be enclosed with garages, or it could also be the columns. And some people have asked me, well, what do these columns look like? Are these are these like the wood pilings sticking out of the ground? I said, no, these are not. These are full masonry, cinder block, poured with concrete and filled with steel. So it's good information, and it's good to know kind of the impact of elevating your home and looking at these different variables from the flood and elevating it. On top of elevating it too, we know that as you raise a home and you're getting different views, let's say you're a home that's not on the water and you raise your home and you actually get a little bit of a water view. Mm-hmm. There's actually a value add there to your structure as well. So some different things as you're considering building a new home. So thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike Zender. This is Chad Lupke with Seasafe Homes. Thank you.